Success leaves clues. But I had never taken the time to follow them. From that day, I became a student of success, and everything changed. Wealthy people have a habit of learning, growing, and improving. They don't wait for success to come, they prepare for it. And today we're going to talk about those habits, the habits that separate the wealthy from the rest, the habits that can take you from where you are to where you want to be. If there's one thing that separates those who succeed from those who don't, it's this: they take full responsibility for their lives. The wealthy don't sit around blaming the government, the economy, or their upbringing. They don't wait for someone to come along and fix their situation. They take charge. They say, if it's to be, it's up to me. I remember when I was struggling financially, working a job that barely covered the bills. I was frustrated, blaming everything but myself. Then I met a mentor who asked me a simple question: who's in charge of your life? At first I wanted to say, well, my boss decides my paycheck, the government takes taxes, and the economy. But then it hit me. It was me all along. I had to take responsibility. That conversation changed everything. Here's a hard truth. If you blame others, you give away your power. If you say, I can't succeed because of my background, then you never will. If you say, I wasn't taught about money, so I'll always struggle, then that will be your reality. But the moment you say, I am in charge, I decide where I go from here, everything changes. The wealthy think differently. They don't see themselves as victims. They see themselves as creators. If they don't know something, they learn. If they don't have the right skills, they develop them. If they're in a tough situation, they find a way out. That's the mindset you need to build wealth. Let's take an example. Imagine two people working the same job, making the same salary. One says, this is all I'll ever have. I can't get ahead. The system is against me. The other says, this is my starting point, not my final destination. I'll learn new skills, save, invest, and grow. 10 years later, one is still struggling and the other is financially free. The difference? Mindset and responsibility. A young man once told me I'd be rich if I had wealthy parents. I told him, then how do you explain all the people who started poor and became millionaires? He had no answer. The truth is, your background is not your destiny. Your decisions are. Success starts the moment you stop waiting for someone to rescue you. The wealthy understand that no one is coming to hand them a fortune. They don't wait for luck, an inheritance, or they create their own opportunities. They take control of their time, their money, and their choices. If you want to build wealth, start by taking full responsibility. Your financial future is in your hands. Don't wait for perfect conditions. Don't wait for someone to come and change your life. Take charge. Make a plan. Take action. Because if you don't, no one else will. Everyone wants success. Everyone has dreams of financial freedom, a better life, a better future. But wanting success is not enough. The question is, do you have the discipline to do what's necessary to achieve it? I once heard someone say, I want to be rich, but I just don't have the motivation to work on it every day. That's the problem. Motivation comes and goes. Discipline stays. The wealthy don't rely on motivation. They rely on habits, on routines, on self-discipline. They do what needs to be done, even when they don't feel like it. Years ago, when I was just starting out, I learned a powerful lesson about discipline. I had big goals. I wanted to be successful, but I also had bad habits. Sleeping in, wasting time, making excuses. Then my mentor asked me, how serious are you about success? I said, very serious. He said, then why don't your actions show it? That hit me hard. That day I made a decision to practice discipline, to get up early, to read every day, to work on my skills, to control my spending. And you know what? Everything changed. Because self-discipline is the bridge between goals and accomplishments. It's what separates those who dream of success from those who achieve it. Imagine two people start with the same financial goal, to save and invest $10,000 in a year. One wakes up early, plans their expenses, and follows through every day. The other spends money impulsively, procrastinates, and makes excuses. At the end of the year, one has the money and the other is still stuck. Same goal, same opportunity, different levels of discipline. Success doesn't come from what you do once in a while. It comes from what you do every single day. The wealthy have daily disciplines. Reading, learning, planning, executing. They don't let emotions dictate their actions. They don't wait until they feel like working. They just do it. Take exercise as an example. No one feels like working out every day, but those who do it consistently see the results. The same is true for financial success. If you practice financial discipline, saving, investing, learning, you will see the results. Not overnight, but over time. I asked him, how much TV do you watch? He hesitated. The truth is, he had time. He just wasn't using it wisely. Discipline is about making the right choices, even when the wrong ones are easier. The wealthy don't indulge in every pleasure. They don't spend recklessly. They don't let distractions steal their future. They have the discipline to say no to what doesn't serve them so they can say yes to financial freedom. If you master self-discipline, you can master success. You don't need luck and you don't need excuses. You just need to do the right things every day, no matter what. Because discipline will take you where motivation never can. If you want to change your financial future, you have to change the way you work. Most people do the minimum. They show up, they put in the required effort, and they expect success to come their way. But that's not how wealth is built. Success belongs to those who go beyond expectations, those who always do more than they are paid for. Many years ago, I learned a simple but powerful principle. If you do more than what you're paid for, eventually you'll be paid for more than what you do. It sounds simple, but most people miss it. They work only as much as they think their paycheck deserves. They say, why should I put in extra effort if I'm not getting paid for it? That kind of thinking will keep a person broke. Let me tell you a story. There was a young man working as a salesman. He had a small base salary and most of his earnings came from commissions. One day his manager told him, you don't have to make extra calls. Just meet the minimum requirement. But this young man wasn't interested in doing the minimum. He came in early, stayed late, followed up with every customer, and even helped others close their deals. A year later, he wasn't just the top salesman, he was being considered for management. He didn't wait to be rewarded before giving his best. He gave his best first, and the rewards followed. That's how wealth is built. You don't wait for someone to pay you more before you work harder. You work harder and eventually people will pay you more. Think about the people who rise to the top in any field. It's never the ones who do the bare minimum. It's the ones who take extra steps, who bring extra value. The best employees get promoted. The best business owners get referrals. The best service providers build strong reputations. One of the biggest financial mistakes a person can make is saying, that's not my job. If you want to increase your income, increase your value, do more, be more, serve more. If you work for someone, give your best effort, not because they pay you more, but because that's how you become the kind of person who attracts success. I once heard someone complain, I'm underpaid. I asked, then how do you become more valuable? Because the marketplace doesn't reward complaints. It rewards results. If you feel underpaid, don't just demand a raise. Become more valuable. Learn new skills. Take on more responsibility. Deliver more than what's expected. The marketplace will notice. Wealthy people understand this principle. They don't focus on what they're getting. They focus on what they're, and because they give more, they eventually receive more. That's how success works. If you consistently do more than what you're paid for, one day you'll be paid for more than what you do. If you want to change your life, start by changing who you spend time with. The people around you have more influence on your success than you might realize. Most people follow the crowd, the 97%, and the problem is that crowd isn't going anywhere. They complain about their jobs, blame the economy, and never take responsibility for their future. But if you want success, you have to break away from that mindset. You have to choose your associations wisely. Many years ago, I learned a valuable lesson. You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. That means if you spend time with people who make excuses, you'll start making excuses. If you spend time with people who waste money, you'll start wasting money. But if you spend time with successful, disciplined, and ambitious people, that's what you'll become. I once met a man who wanted financial success, but his closest friends spent their weekends drinking, gambling, and complaining about their bosses. Every time he talked about his goals, they laughed and told him to be realistic. Eventually, he realized something. If he stayed around them, he'd end up just like them. So he made a tough decision. He distanced himself. Instead of wasting weekends, he started reading books on wealth. Instead of spending time with complainers, he found mentors. A few years later, his old friends were still in the same place, but he had built a successful business. This is how wealth is built, not just by working hard, but by surrounding yourself with the right influences. If you're spending time with people who doubt success, who think rich people are lucky, who say money isn't everything, then it's no surprise if your mindset starts to reflect theirs. You have to make a choice. Follow the crowd or follow success. Look at the 97%. They live paycheck to paycheck. They never invest in themselves. They wait for luck instead of creating opportunity. And if you stay in that environment, their habits will become yours. But the 3%, the ones who achieve real wealth, they think differently. They read, they learn, they take risks. They surround themselves with winners. I once had a conversation with a young man who said, "I don't know any successful people," I told him. Then start by reading their books. Listen to their words. Learn from them, even if you've never met them. You don't need to be born into a wealthy circle. You can build one. Attend seminars, find mentors, join groups of like-minded individuals. Slowly, your environment will shift, and so will your future. Success isn't just about what you do, it's about who you do it with. If you want to achieve wealth, start walking away from the 97%. Find people who challenge you, inspire you, and push you to be better. Because the right associations don't just influence your thinking, they shape your entire future. Wealth without integrity is like a house built on sand. It might stand for a while, but sooner or later it collapses. Real wealth, the kind that lasts, is built on strong principles, on character, on doing what's right even when no one is watching. Some people think they can take shortcuts, cheat a little here, lie a little there, and still get ahead. But let me tell you something. If you have to cheat to win, you haven't really won. The real winners, the ones who build lasting success, are the ones who operate with honesty, fairness, and strong moral character. I once knew a businessman who was doing well, at least on the surface. He made deals with a handshake, but he never kept his word. He promised his employees bonuses, but found excuses not to pay them. He overcharged his customers, thinking they'd never notice. And for a while, it seemed like he was getting ahead. But then, one by one, people stopped trusting him. Employees left. Customers took their business elsewhere, and eventually his empire crumbled. He learned the hard way that you can't fool people forever. Sooner or later, your character catches up with you. Now contrast that with another man I knew. He built his wealth slowly, but he built it the right way. He treated his employees with respect. He gave customers more than they expected. He never made promises he couldn't keep. And over time, his reputation became his greatest asset. When times were tough, people stuck with him because they trusted him. And that's what real wealth is. Not just money, but the trust and respect of those around you. If you want financial success that lasts, build it on principles. Be honest in your dealings. Keep your promises. Do what's right, not what's easy, because shortcuts may get you a quick dollar, but they won't build a legacy. Look at the great fortunes in history. The ones that stood the test of time were built on integrity, but the ones built on greed, deception, and dishonesty, they disappeared. Some people say, but honesty takes too long. I don't have time for that. Let me tell you something. Success built the right way may take longer, but it stays longer. If you do things the right way, people will trust you, and trust is more valuable than gold. It brings opportunities, connections, and respect. And when you have those things, wealth follows. I once heard about a young entrepreneur who had a chance to make a quick profit by cutting corners. He could have used lower quality materials, hidden the defects, and walked away with a bigger paycheck. But he asked himself, what kind of businessman do I want to be? He chose the harder road, the honest road. And because of that, his customers kept coming back. His reputation grew, and in the long run, he made far more money than he would have by taking shortcuts. Wealth built on integrity lasts because it is built on a solid foundation. It doesn't crumble when times get tough. It doesn't fall apart when people start asking questions. It stands firm because it was built the right way. If you want to be rich, don't just focus on making money. Focus on becoming a person of strong character. Because when you do that, wealth will find you, and it will stay with you. Most people think in terms of the next paycheck, the next weekend, or the next month. But the wealthy? They think in terms of decades. They don't play for the short-term gain. They play for the long-term win. If you want to build real wealth, you have to develop long-term thinking. You have to see beyond today, beyond this year. Because wealth is not built overnight. It's built through years of smart decisions, discipline, and consistency. I once met a young man who was eager to get rich fast. He jumped from one business idea to another, looking for the quickest way to make money. One day it was real estate, the next it was stocks. Then it was some new shiny investment that promised big returns. But here's the problem. He never stayed long enough to master anything. He was always looking for shortcuts, always chasing the next big thing. And after years of running in circles, he was no further ahead than when he started. Because wealth is not a sprint, it's a marathon. If you plant a seed today, you can't expect fruit tomorrow. But if you water it, nurture it, and give it time, it will grow into a tree that provides fruit for a lifetime. I've seen this happen so many times. People start something, but the moment they don't see quick results, they quit. They give up too soon. And that's why most people never build real wealth. The wealthy, on the other hand, understand patience. They know that the greatest rewards come to those who stay the course. They invest for the long run. They build businesses with the future in mind. They make decisions not just for today, but for years down the road. I once spoke to a successful investor who told me his secret. He said, most people look at what's happening in the market today. I look at what's going to happen in the next 10, 20, or 30 years. That's the kind of thinking that builds wealth. When others panic because of short-term losses, the wealthy stay calm because they're playing the long game. Take a look at those who truly succeed. They're not the ones chasing instant results. They're the ones who stay committed, who build their skills, who invest their money wisely over time. And the key word here is time. Because success is not about what you do once. It's about what you do consistently over time. Imagine two people start investing the same amount of money. One tries to time the market, jumping in and out, looking for quick wins. The other simply invests steadily, month after month, year after year. Who ends up wealthier? Almost always, it's the second person. Because consistency beats intensity. Small efforts, repeated over time, lead to massive results. The same applies to building a business, developing a skill, or creating a legacy. The most successful people in any field aren't the ones who work the hardest for a few months. They're the ones who stayed committed for years. Long-term thinking also means making decisions that align with where you want to be in the future, not just where you are today. Too many people make decisions based on short-term comfort rather than long-term success. They spend money instead of investing it. They avoid hard work instead of developing discipline. They chase distractions instead of building skills. But here's the truth. What you do today determines where you'll be 5 years from now. Think about your habits, your routines, your mindset. Are they leading you towards success in the long run, or just giving you momentary satisfaction? The wealthy don't live for temporary pleasure. They delay gratification. They put in the effort today so they can enjoy the rewards later. That's the secret to long-term wealth. There's an old saying, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is now. If you haven't been thinking long-term, start today. Start making decisions that will benefit you not just tomorrow, but years down the road. Build something that will last. Because real wealth doesn't happen by accident. It happens when you commit to the long game. Most people want success, but not everyone is willing to do what it takes. They dream, they plan, they hope. But when it comes time to put in the work, they hesitate. They do just enough to get by, just enough to stay comfortable. But let me tell you something. Success is not for the ones who do just enough. It's for the ones who go all in. Massive success requires massive action. I remember meeting a young man who wanted to build wealth. He had ambition, he had big goals, and he was always talking about what he was going to do. But when I asked him, what are you doing right now to make it happen? He had no answer. He was waiting for the right moment, the right opportunity, the right circumstances. But success doesn't wait for you to be ready. It comes to those who take action, those who are relentless in their pursuit of it. I've seen it time and time again. People with all the talent in the world, but no work ethic. And then I've seen others with no special skills, no special advantages, but with an unstoppable drive to succeed. And guess what? It's not talent that wins. It's not intelligence. It's effort. It's discipline. It's the willingness to work harder than anyone else. You don't get what you wish for, you get what you work for. Let me give you an example. Picture two men working the same job. One does only what's required, shows up on time, leaves as soon as the clock hits 5. The other, he arrives early, stays late, looks for ways to improve, does more than what's asked. Who do you think gets promoted? Who do you think gets ahead? It's always the one who puts in the extra effort. Because success follows work, not wishes. The wealthy understand this. They don't wait for motivation. They don't wait for the perfect conditions. They work day in, day out, no matter what. They take action even when they don't feel like it. And that's why they succeed. While others are sleeping, they're working. While others are making excuses, they're making progress. Success is simple. It's just a matter of doing what most people won't. Think about the most successful people in the world. They didn't get there by accident. They didn't get there by luck. They got there because they were relentless. They worked harder than anyone else. They refused to settle. They pushed themselves beyond what was comfortable, beyond what was easy. And that's the difference between those who succeed and those who don't. I knew a man who built a multi-million-dollar business from nothing. When I asked him his secret, he said, I outworked everyone. When others stopped, I kept going. That's the kind of mindset it takes. Because the truth is, there will always be obstacles. There will always be setbacks. But if you're relentless, if you refuse to quit, if you keep taking action, success becomes inevitable. Now, some people say, but what if I fail? Let me tell you something. Failure is part of the process. The most successful people have failed more times than most people have even tried. But they don't stop. They learn, they adjust, and they keep going. The only real failure is quitting. So ask yourself, how bad do you want it? Are you willing to put in the work? Are you willing to wake up early, stay late, do whatever it takes? Because if you are, success is within your reach. But if you're waiting for it to come easy, you'll be waiting a long time. The choice is yours. You can be like everyone else, doing the minimum, hoping for the best, or you can be different. You can decide right now that you will take massive action, that you will do whatever it takes, that you will be relentless. Because the moment you make that decision, everything changes. There's something incredible about learning. It changes your life. It opens doors. It gives you power. But do you know what's even more powerful than learning? Teaching. Because success isn't just about what you know. It's about what you can pass on. True wealth is not just built. It's duplicated. I once had a mentor who told me, if you want to grow, teach. If you want to multiply success, help others succeed. That lesson changed my life. See, most people focus on what they can achieve alone, but the truly successful, they focus on who they can bring with them. They don't hoard knowledge, they share it. They don't build wealth alone, they create opportunities for others. And that's how real success grows. Imagine a farmer planting seeds. If he plants one seed, he gets one tree. But if he teaches others to plant, he creates a forest. That's the difference between just being successful and creating a legacy. The wealthy understand this. That's why they don't just work hard, they teach others how to work smart. They don't just build businesses, they build leaders. The key to long-term success is not just doing, it's teaching others to do. Think about the greatest leaders, the richest minds. They all had mentors. They all learned from someone. But they didn't stop there. They turned around and taught the next generation. That's why their success didn't fade, it multiplied. Because when you teach, you reinforce what you've learned. And when you help others succeed, your success grows too. Let me give you an example. Imagine two business owners. One works alone, keeps all his knowledge to himself. He does well, but he's limited because he's the only one who knows how to do things. The other, he trains his team, shares his knowledge, helps others grow. His business expands, his income multiplies, and even when he steps away, the success continues. Why? Because he duplicated himself. Success that depends only on you is limited. Success that is duplicated is unstoppable. That's why the wealthy focus on systems, not just effort. They build structures that allow success to continue without them. They create teams, train leaders, and pass on their knowledge. Because they know that real wealth isn't just about making money, it's about creating something that lasts. I remember a young man who worked hard but couldn't seem to grow beyond a certain point. He was doing everything himself. Then one day he decided to teach his team everything he knew. At first, it felt uncomfortable. He was afraid they wouldn't do it as well as he did. But something amazing happened. As they learned, they got better. As they improved, the business grew. And before he knew it, he had freed himself from working all the time because now he had a team that could carry the vision forward. If you want freedom, don't just work, teach. Now, some people say, but what if I teach others and they leave? Let me ask you, what if you don't and they stay? What if you keep all your knowledge to yourself and no one else grows? That's not success. That's limitation. The wealthy know that the more they teach, the more they multiply. Because the better the people around you, the stronger your success becomes. Think about this. The reason businesses expand, the reason movements grow, the reason wealth is passed down, it's all because someone took the time to teach. And the same principle applies to your life. Whatever you've learned, pass it on. Whatever success you've achieved, help someone else achieve it too. Because the more you give, the more you get. If you want lasting success, don't just build, duplicate. So ask yourself, who are you helping grow? Who are you teaching? Who are you bringing with you? Because if you focus only on your own success, it will be small. But if you focus on duplicating success, it will be unstoppable. That's how real wealth is built. That's how legacies are created. And that's how success multiplies. Success is not just about working hard. It's about working smart. It's about building the right habits, surrounding yourself with the right people, and thinking beyond just today. Wealth isn't created overnight, and it's not a matter of luck. It's a result of discipline, self-reliance, and a relentless commitment to growth. Your life does not get better by chance, it gets better by change, and that change starts with you. Ask yourself, are you taking full responsibility for your life? Are you disciplined enough to follow through? Are you doing more than you're paid for? Are you surrounding yourself with the right people? Are you playing the long game, taking massive action and duplicating success? If not, today, success is simple, but not easy. The habits of millionaires aren't a secret. They are a choice. And now, the choice is yours. Will you settle for average, or will you commit to extraordinary? Will you just survive, or will you build wealth that lasts? The answer is in your actions. Start today, because if you change nothing, nothing changes. Life doesn't respond to wishes, it responds to actions. Think about it. Everything in your life today is a result of the choices you've made repeatedly. Your health, your wealth, Your success or lack of it are simply reflections of your daily habits. The habits you choose daily shape your future. Wealth and success don't happen overnight. They come from the small, consistent actions you take. If you want a better life, start by changing your habits. Comfort is the enemy of progress. Most people live the same year over and over again, calling it a life. They wake up, go to work, come home, watch TV, and repeat, never questioning if their habits are leading them to where they truly want to go. Mediocrity is not the result of bad luck, it's the result of comfortable habits. So let me ask you, are your habits making you stronger, richer, and wiser, or are they quietly stealing your future? Because nothing changes until your habits do. Every habit you have is either adding to your future or taking away from it. It's either an investment or an expense. There's no middle ground. I remember when I was 25, broke and frustrated. I wanted success, but my habits were working against me. I spent money on things I didn't need. I wasted time on entertainment instead of education. I told myself one day, I'll get serious. But one day never comes unless you change something today. My mentor looked at me and said, if you keep spending your time and money the way you are, don't be surprised when you're still struggling 5 years from now. That hit me hard. So let's make this clear. If you read a book that teaches you something valuable, that's an investment. If you waste hours scrolling through nonsense that adds nothing to your life, that's an expense. If you put aside a portion of your income for savings and investments, that's an investment. If you spend everything you make, living paycheck to paycheck, that's an expense. Imagine two young men both starting with the same job, same salary, same opportunities. One decides to invest in himself. He buys books on personal development, attends seminars, saves a portion of his income, and starts developing new skills. The other spends his time and money on temporary pleasures, fancy dinners, expensive gadgets, hours of television. Fast forward 5 years, and one of them has grown, built wealth, and created new opportunities, while the other is still stuck, wondering why nothing has changed. The difference? Their habits. Success doesn't happen by luck. It's built by daily choices. If you eat healthy today, your body thanks you later. If you learn a new skill today, your future self has more opportunities. But if you neglect your health or refuse to grow, you'll pay for it down the road. The challenge is most people don't see the results of their habits right away. You don't go broke overnight. You go broke by making small, poor financial decisions every day. You don't become successful overnight. You get there by making smart choices consistently. The little things add up, whether you like it or not. So ask yourself, what habits are you practicing? Are they adding to your future or taking from it? If you don't like where you're headed, change what you do daily, because at the end of the day, your habits will determine whether you build wealth or stay in struggle. Imagine two people who start the same journey. One improves just 1% every day, learning, practicing, adjusting. The other stays the same, making no effort to grow. At first, there's no big difference. But after a year, one person has completely transformed while the other is stuck exactly where they were. That's how success works. It doesn't happen in a day. It happens when you improve daily habits over time. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to be better than you were yesterday. Small improvements, done consistently, lead to massive success. If you commit to growing, life will open doors you never imagined. Keep improving your habits, and success will follow. I used to be like most people. I had big dreams, big goals, and big plans. I wanted to be successful. I wanted to be wealthy. I wanted a better life. But for years, nothing changed. I was still struggling, still making excuses, still hoping that one day things would magically turn around. But nothing changed because I wasn't disciplined enough to follow through. One day, my mentor sat me down and said, it's not enough to set goals. Everyone has goals. The difference between those who succeed and those who don't is discipline. That was the truth I needed to hear. Because discipline is what separates wishing from achieving. Imagine two people both decide they want to be financially free. One of them wakes up early, reads books, learns new skills, saves and invests a portion of their income, and works on building something meaningful. The other person keeps doing what they've always done, spending everything they make, wasting time, skipping opportunities to learn. At the start, you wouldn't notice much of a difference between them. But fast forward 5 years, and one of them is on the path to wealth, while the other is still stuck, still frustrated, still blaming circumstances. The difference? Discipline. Discipline is waking up when you said you would. It's sticking to your plans even when you don't feel like it. It's choosing long-term rewards over short-term pleasure. It's the thing that turns dreams into reality. Without it, success is impossible. I had to learn this lesson the hard way. When I was young, I would tell myself, I'll start tomorrow. But tomorrow would come, and I'd push it to the next day, then the next. And before I knew it, years had passed, and I was still in the same place. The moment I took discipline seriously, when I decided that I would show up every day, no matter how I felt, that's when everything changed. Imagine an athlete who dreams of winning a championship but never trains. No practice, no effort, just wishes. Will they ever win? Of course not. Now imagine another athlete who wakes up early, trains when no one is watching, pushes past the pain, and stays consistent. That's the person who wins. Success doesn't come to the most talented. It comes to the most disciplined. Discipline might be uncomfortable at first, but so is regret. The difference is that discipline leads to rewards, while regret leads to disappointment. You can either suffer the pain of discipline or the pain of regret, but only one leads to a better life. So if you want to change your life, start by changing your habits. And if you want your habits to stick, you need discipline. Not just when it's easy, not just when you feel motivated, but every single day. Because discipline is the bridge between setting a goal and actually achieving it. Imagine two people with the same potential. One spends hours every day watching meaningless content, complaining about the economy, and hanging around people who have no direction. The other spends time reading books on wealth, listening to successful people, and surrounding themselves with those who challenge them to grow. Now fast forward 5 years. One person is still struggling, still frustrated, still blaming circumstances. The other is thriving, making smart financial decisions and building a better future. Same starting point, completely different results. The difference? What they fed their mind. Your financial future is shaped by what you choose to consume every day. If you want success, you have to start feeding your mind the right information. Read books that teach you how money works. Learn from those who have built wealth. Cut out the negativity that drains your energy and fills your mind with doubt. I remember when I first started listening to successful people. At first, it was uncomfortable. Their ideas were different from what I was used to. They talked about discipline, responsibility, and long-term thinking. It wasn't easy, but I kept listening. And little by little, my mindset started to shift. I started making better choices. I started seeing opportunities where I used to see obstacles. And eventually, my financial situation started to change. Imagine walking into a gym every day but never lifting a single weight. Would you get stronger? Of course not. The same applies to your mind. If you want to build financial strength, you have to exercise your mind with the right information. You have to train yourself to think differently, to see beyond your current situation, and to develop habits that lead to wealth. Be careful what you allow into your mind. Negative people, bad advice, and mindless distractions will keep you stuck. But wisdom, education, and learning from successful people will move you forward. If you don't like where your life is headed, start by changing what you put into your mind every single day, because what you feed your mind today will determine your financial future tomorrow. When I was young and struggling, I had to take a hard look at the people around me. I realized something important. The conversations I was having, the attitudes I was absorbing, and the habits I was picking up were shaping my future. And if I didn't change my associations, my future wouldn't change either. One day, my mentor gave me a challenge. He said, make a list of the 5 people you spend the most time with and ask yourself, are they lifting you up or holding you back? That hit me hard I looked around and saw that the people closest to me had no goals, no vision, and no discipline. They spent their time complaining about their problems instead of finding solutions. And without realizing it, I had started to think the same way. So I made a decision. I was going to change my circle. I started spending more time around people who had ambition, people who talked about ideas instead of excuses. And let me tell you, it was uncomfortable at first. They thought differently. They challenged me. They made me see my own weaknesses. But it's exactly what I needed. Because if you want to change your life, you have to change who influences you. Imagine two people. One spends their time with friends who waste money, avoid responsibility, and blame circumstances for their failures. The other surrounds themselves with people who plan for the future, take action, and hold themselves accountable. Fast forward 5 years, one is stuck in the same cycle while the other is on the path to wealth and success. The difference? Who they chose to associate with. Success leaves clues, but so does failure. If you spend time with people who make excuses, it won't be long before you start making them too. But if you surround yourself with people who push themselves to grow, who talk about solutions instead of problems, who have habits that lead to wealth, then your habits will change too. And when your habits change, your results change. I had a friend years ago who always talked about getting rich, but every time we met, he was surrounded by people who never talked about progress, never read a book, and never made a plan for their future. He thought he could succeed while keeping the same associations, but it doesn't work that way. After years of no progress, he finally realized the truth. If you want to elevate your life, you can't stay attached to people who are dragging you down. Now, I'm not saying to cut people off without reason, but you have to be wise about where you invest your time. If someone is holding you back, limit their influence. If someone is pushing you forward, spend more time with them. Your financial future is shaped by who you listen to, who you learn from, and who you allow to influence your habits. So take a look at your circle. Are they helping you grow, or are they keeping you stuck? If you want to change your wealth, start by changing your association, because the people around you will either build your success or bury your potential. I used to wonder why some people seemed to have all the success while others struggled their whole lives. Was it luck? Was it talent? But then I learned something that changed everything. Success leaves clues. If you want to be successful, study those who have already achieved what you want. Copy their habits, learn their principles, and apply them to your own life. I'll never forget the first time I was introduced to this idea. I was broke, frustrated, and full of excuses. Then I met a man who was wealthy, disciplined, and full of wisdom. I asked him, "What's the secret to success?" He smiled and said, "There's no secret. Just do what successful people do." That was it. Simple, but powerful. So I started paying attention. I watched how successful people spent their time, how they handled their money, how they made decisions. And I started noticing patterns. They woke up early. They planned their day. They were disciplined with their spending. They never stopped learning. They weren't wasting time on things that didn't matter. They had daily habits that moved them closer to their goals. Imagine two people. One wakes up late, rushes through the day without a plan, spends every dollar they make and never invests in learning. The other starts the day with purpose, follows a plan, saves and invests wisely, and constantly seeks knowledge. Fast forward 10 years. One is still struggling. The other is financially free. The difference? Their habits. When I started changing my own habits, everything shifted. I stopped wasting money on things I didn't need and started investing in my future. I stopped spending time with people who had no direction and started surrounding myself with those who challenged me to grow. And most importantly, I made learning a daily habit. I read books on success, studied wealth building principles, and listened to people who had already walked the path I wanted to take. And slowly but surely, my life started to change. If you want to be successful, start studying success. Find people who have already achieved what you want and model their habits. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. Just find the right wheel and start rolling. I once knew a man who wanted to build wealth but never took the time to study how money worked. He worked hard, but he didn't learn how to manage, invest, or grow his income. He ignored the habits of the wealthy and kept repeating the same mistake. Years passed, and he was still struggling. Hard work alone isn't enough. You have to work smart. And the smart way is to follow the habits that lead to wealth. Pay attention to what wealthy people do. They don't waste money on things that lose value. They invest in assets. They don't waste time on distractions. They focus on their goals. They don't avoid risk. They learn how to manage it. And they never stop growing. The clues to success are all around you, but you have to be willing to see them. Find the habits, study the principles, and apply them consistently. If you do that, success won't be a mystery anymore. It will be a process. And if you follow the process, you'll get the results. There was a time in my life when I was struggling. My bank account was empty, my ambitions were low, and my future looked uncertain. And do you know what the real problem was? I was tolerating it. I had accepted average. I had accepted financial struggle. I had accepted a life that was far below what I was capable of. And as long as I tolerated it, nothing changed. One day, I finally had enough. I looked around and asked myself, why am I living like this? And the answer hit me hard, because I allowed it. No one was forcing me to stay broke. No one was stopping me from learning, growing, or changing. It was my own acceptance of mediocrity that kept me stuck. That was the day I made a decision. I would no longer tolerate anything less than my best. If you tolerate excuses, they will become your way of life. If you tolerate bad habits, they will control you. If you tolerate financial struggle, it will follow you year after year. Whatever you allow, you encourage. Whatever you accept, you live with. If you don't like where you are, you have to stop tolerating it. Imagine a person who complains about being overweight but continues eating junk food every day. Imagine someone who says they want to be wealthy but wastes every dollar they earn. Their life isn't a mystery. It's the result of what they tolerate. Until they decide that enough is enough, nothing will change. I remember meeting a man who always talked about getting ahead, but year after year he stayed in the same place. Why? Because he kept tolerating the same bad habits. He tolerated wasting time. He tolerated negative influences. He tolerated financial irresponsibility. And as long as he did, his life never improved. But then one day he made a decision. He stopped accepting excuses. He stopped allowing distractions. He stopped tolerating a mindset that kept him broke. And everything started to shift. He began learning, taking action, and changing his habits. And within a few years, he was in a completely different place because he finally refused to tolerate anything less. Take a look at your own life. What have you been putting up with for too long? What bad habits, negative influences, or limiting beliefs have you allowed to stay? If you want real change, you have to draw the line. Decide today that you will no longer accept anything that holds you back. Because the moment you stop tolerating less, you start creating more. For a long time, I thought success was about saying yes to every opportunity. I said yes to every invitation, every request, every new idea that came my way. But after a while, I realized something. I was spreading myself too thin. My time was slipping away, my focus was scattered, and I wasn't making real progress. That's when I learned a critical lesson. The habit of saying no is just as important as saying yes. Most people think success comes from adding more to their plate, more commitments, more projects, more responsibilities. But the truth is, success often comes from removing what doesn't matter. If you say yes to everything, you're saying no to the things that truly move you forward. Imagine a person who wants to build wealth, but says yes to every night out, every unnecessary expense, every impulse buy. They wonder why they can't get ahead. But the answer is simple. They never said no to the habits that drain their resources. Now imagine someone who learns the power of saying no. They say no to wasting money, no to distractions, no to anything that doesn't serve their long-term goals. Fast forward a few years. One person is still struggling, the other is financially free. The difference? One mastered the habit of saying no. I remember a time when I was invited to an event that had nothing to do with my goals. It would have been fun, sure, but it wouldn't have helped me grow. I had to make a choice: say yes and waste time, or say no and invest that time in something valuable. I chose to say no, and instead I spent that time reading, learning, and working on my future. Over time, that one decision turned into a habit that changed my life. Saying no doesn't mean you're selfish. It means you're serious about your future. It means you understand that time is your most valuable asset. Every time you say yes to something that doesn't matter, you're saying no to something that does. And if you keep saying yes to the wrong things, you'll never have time for the right things. Think about the people who are successful. They don't waste their time on meaningless distractions. They don't agree to every request. They guard their time, their energy, and their focus. They know that saying no to the wrong things creates space for the right things. If you want to build wealth, success, and a better life, start practicing the habit of saying no. Say no to procrastination, no to bad spending habits, no to time-wasting activities. Because every no to the wrong thing is a yes to the right thing. And those small decisions, they add up. So be careful what you agree to, because every yes has a cost. Say yes only to what truly matters. I used to believe that making more money was the answer to my financial struggles. I thought if I could just earn more, all my problems would disappear. But then I learned something that changed everything. It's not about how much you make. It's about how much you keep. I remember a time when I was working hard, making decent money, but still struggling financially. Why? Because I had poor spending habits. Every time I earned a little extra, I found a way to spend it. A nicer car, a better suit, a fancier dinner. It felt good in the moment, but at the end of the month, I was still broke. That's when I realized the truth. Your spending habits determine your financial future. Imagine two people who each earn the same amount of money. One spends every dollar on entertainment, luxury, and things that lose value. The other sets aside a portion for investing, learning, and building wealth. Fast forward 10 years. One is still struggling, the other is financially free. The difference? It wasn't their income, it was their habits. I once met a young man who told me he couldn't afford to invest in his future. He said he had no extra money. But then I watched him spend $5 on coffee every morning, $50 on entertainment every weekend, and hundreds on things he didn't need. The truth was, he had the money, he was just spending it in the wrong places. The problem isn't that people don't have enough money. The problem is that they spend without thinking. They live paycheck to paycheck, always waiting for the next raise, instead of building the habits that lead to real financial freedom. So ask yourself, where is your money going? Are you spending on things that help you grow, or are you spending on things that hold you back? If you want to be wealthy, start practicing the habit of intentional spending. Because financial freedom isn't about how much you earn, it's about how wisely you use what you have. I used to think that bad habits were just small mistakes, things I could fix later, things that didn't really matter. But I was wrong. Bad habits don't just slow you down, they steal your future. They take the time, the energy, and the opportunities you could have used to build something great, and they trade it for nothing. I remember a time in my life when I had the habit of procrastinating. I'd say, I'll start tomorrow. But tomorrow never came. I told myself I'd read that book later, make that investment later, start that project later, and before I knew it, years had passed, and I was in the same place. That's when I realized bad habits don't wait for you to change. They keep taking from you until there's nothing left. Imagine someone who dreams of financial freedom, but they have the habit of spending every dollar they earn. No savings, no investments, just instant gratification. Now imagine another person who earns the same amount but chooses to save and invest consistently. 10 years later, one is struggling and the other is financially secure. The difference wasn't their income, it was their habits. Or think about health. Imagine two people who both want to live long, energetic lives. One exercises regularly, eats well, and takes care of their body. The other has the habit of skipping workouts, eating junk food, and ignoring their health. At first, there's no big difference. But after a few years, one is strong and full of energy, while the other is tired and facing health problems. Again, the difference is in the habits. Bad habits don't announce themselves. They creep in quietly. They make you comfortable with doing less, settling for less, expecting less. And before you know it, you're behind. You're watching others succeed, wondering what happened. But nothing happened. You just let your bad habits steal the time and opportunities you could have used to build your future. I once met a man who told me he always wanted to start a business. Every time I saw him, he had a new excuse. Too busy, too tired, too risky. But the truth was, he had a habit of making excuses. And that habit cost him years of progress. By the time he finally decided to act, he had already lost too much time. So take a hard look at your daily habits. What are they costing you? Are they pushing you forward or are they holding you back? If they're holding you back, don't wait. Break them before they break you. Because your habits shape your future. And if you don't change them, they will keep stealing the success that could have been yours. Success doesn't wait. You either act now or watch others pass you by. I once met a man who told me he wanted to change his life. He was tired of struggling, tired of living paycheck to paycheck, tired of making excuses. I asked him, "What are you doing about it?" He said, "I'll figure it out soon." But soon never came. Years later, he was still in the same place. Not because he wasn't capable, but because he kept waiting for someday. If you want success, if you want wealth, if you want to change your life, the time is now. Not next year, not when you feel ready, not when the conditions are perfect. Now, because every day you wait is a day you lose. Every moment you hesitate is a moment you'll never get back. So stop waiting. Start where you are. Do what you can. Because the only way to change your future is to change your present. Let me leave you with this. Your life is built on the habits you choose. The little decisions you make each day determine your future. Success isn't a mystery, and wealth isn't reserved for the lucky. It's built through discipline, consistent action, and the right mindset. So ask yourself, what habits are shaping your life right now? Are they leading you toward success, or are they quietly stealing your future? Are you feeding your mind with knowledge, surrounding yourself with the right people, and making wise financial choices? Or are you stuck in the same patterns, waiting for a change that never comes? I challenge you, take control today. Not next week, not next year, today. Decide what habits you need to break and which ones you need to build. Take responsibility for where you are and where you're going. Start reading daily. Invest in yourself. Surround yourself with winners. Say no to what doesn't serve your future. Stop making excuses and start taking action. Because in the end, success is not about what you wish for. It's about what you do every single day. So go out there, make the changes, build the habits, stay consistent, and watch how your life transforms. Because when you change your habits, you don't just change your routine, you change your destiny. We become what we think about the most. That's the foundation of success and failure. Your subconscious mind is always working, shaping your actions, your habits, and your destiny. The problem is, most people don't even realize they've programmed themselves for struggle. Think about it. If all day long you dwell on your problems, your fears, your limitations, guess what? Your subconscious takes those thoughts as instruction. It says, all right, let's create more of that. But if you start feeding your mind thoughts of growth, wealth, and discipline, your subconscious gets to work on making those a reality instead. So let me ask you, what have you been thinking about the most? Success or failure? Abundance or scarcity? Growth or excuses? Because whether you realize it or not, your life is simply a reflection of what's been programmed into it. Today, we're going to talk about how to take back control, how to reprogram your subconscious mind for success, wealth, and a better life. Because once you change your thinking, everything else will follow. The mind is a powerful thing. It takes in whatever you give it and works on it day and night. If you fill it with doubt, it will find ways to prove you right. If you fill it with knowledge, discipline, and the right influences, it will shape your future in ways you never imagined. Most people don't realize that their success or failure begins with what they allow into their minds. What you read, what you listen to, and who you spend time with, all of it programs your subconscious. If you want success, you have to take control of what you're feeding your mind. I remember when I was young, I wasn't thinking about success. I was just getting by. Then one day, someone handed me a book. That book opened my eyes to ideas I had never heard before. Ideas about discipline, wealth, and success. That book planted a seed in my mind, and once that seed was there, I couldn't ignore it. It changed the way I saw the world. That's what happens when you feed your mind the right information. It changes your thinking. It changes your expectations. And when your expectations change, your results start to change. Now, here's the problem. Most people are feeding their minds the wrong things. They wake up and start their day with bad news. They surround themselves with people who complain about life. They spend hours watching entertainment that adds nothing to their future. And then they wonder why nothing changes. So how do you change it? You start feeding your mind with the right information. Get around people who challenge you to grow. Read books that stretch your thinking. Listen to ideas that force you to see beyond where you are. If you do this consistently, your subconscious mind will start working for you instead of against you. The lesson is simple. If you want success, start feeding your mind like someone who is serious about success, because your subconscious mind is always working, shaping your life based on what you put into it. Make sure you're giving it the right materials to work with. If you don't know where you're going, how will you ever get there? Success isn't something that happens by accident. It starts with a clear vision. A picture in your mind of the life you want to build, a goal so strong that it pulls you forward. Most people never take the time to define what success means to them. They drift through life taking whatever comes their way. They work hard but never seem to get anywhere because they have no target, no direction. And here's the truth. If you don't set the direction for your life, someone else will. If you don't decide where you're going, you'll spend your life helping someone else achieve their vision instead. I remember when I was young, I didn't have a clear vision. I was just working, paying my bills, and getting by. Then I met a mentor who asked me, "What do you really want?" I had never thought about it before. He told me, "Sit down and write it out. What kind of life do you want? How much do you want to earn? Where do you want to live? What kind of person do you want to become?" That exercise changed everything. Because once I could see it in my mind, I could start working toward it. Your subconscious mind works like a magnet. It moves toward the strongest images you hold in your mind. If you have a clear vision, your mind will start finding ways to make it happen. But if your vision is blurry or weak, your mind won't know what to focus on. It will keep you where you are. Here's the key. Don't just think about it once and forget it. Write it down. Read it every day. Speak it out loud. Your subconscious mind will take it in and start guiding your actions to match your vision. I've seen people transform their lives just by getting clear on what they want. A man struggling in his career wrote down his vision of earning twice his income. At first, it seemed impossible. But as he focused on it, his mind started working in new ways. He spotted opportunities he had never noticed before. He took action, and in time, he made it a reality. Here's a simple truth. The way you talk to yourself matters more than the way anyone else talks to you. You might have people in your life who doubt you, but if you don't doubt yourself, they can't stop you. On the other hand, you might have people who encourage you, but if you keep telling yourself you're not good enough, their words won't make a difference. I once met a man who wanted to start a business. Every time an idea came to him, he told himself, "I'm not sure if I can do it." And so he never did. The fear in his words became the reality of his life. One day, I told him, change the way you talk to yourself. Instead of saying, "I'm not sure," start saying, "I'll figure it out." That small shift in words led to a big shift in his actions. A year later, he had his business up and running. If you want to reprogram your mind for success, start with your words, because what you tell yourself every day will either lift you up or pull you down. Make sure you're saying the right things. The mind doesn't change overnight. You don't wake up one day with a brand new way of thinking just because you decided to. No, real change happens through repetition. The thoughts you repeat, the actions you repeat, the habits you repeat, these are what shape your subconscious mind and ultimately your life. Most people try something once or twice and give up when they don't see results. They read one book, listen to one good idea, and expect a transformation. But that's not how the mind works. The mind needs to be conditioned, trained, and reinforced every single day. Just like you don't get strong by going to the gym once. You don't build a powerful mindset by thinking the right thoughts once. A man once told me, "I tried thinking positive, but it didn't work." I asked him, "How long did you try?" He said, "For a few days." That's the problem. Success isn't about what you do once in a while. It's about what you do consistently. If you want your mind to work for you, you have to feed it the right thoughts over and over until they become automatic. I remember when I first started learning about personal development. I didn't just read a book and move on. I read it again and again. I listened to the same lessons repeatedly until they became part of me. And the more I repeated those ideas, the more they shaped my actions. That's how you reprogram your mind. You don't just hear the right message once. You hear it so many times that it becomes part of how you think. I once met a man who wanted to build his confidence. Every morning he stood in front of the mirror and told himself, "I am confident, I am capable, I will succeed." At first it felt strange to him, but after weeks of repetition, he started believing it. His actions changed, his results changed, and his life changed. If you want to train your mind for success, you have to be consistent. Repeat the right thoughts, repeat the right habits, repeat the right actions, because the thoughts you reinforce every day will determine the life you create. Your beliefs about money and success determine how you experience them in your life. If you believe money is hard to earn, you will always struggle. If you believe success is only for other people, you will never achieve it yourself. The subconscious mind doesn't question whether a belief is true or false. It simply accepts what you feed it. And most people have been feeding their minds the wrong beliefs about wealth and achievement for years. Many people grow up hearing things like money is the root of all evil, or rich people are greedy. If you believe that, your mind will work against you when it comes to wealth. You'll sabotage opportunities, avoid risks, and stay stuck in the same financial struggles year after year. But here's the truth. Money is neither good nor bad. It's simply a tool. It takes on the character of the one who controls it. If you are generous, money will allow you to give more. If you are wise, money will help you build a better future. I once knew a man who had incredible potential. He worked hard, but every time he started making progress, he found a way to lose it. When I asked him why, he said, "I don't want to be one of those rich people who only care about money." That belief was holding him back. I told him, if you have a good heart, having more money will only give you more ways to do good. Money doesn't change people. It reveals who they already are. Your subconscious mind has been programmed by years of exposure to certain ideas. If those ideas are limiting, they will keep you stuck, but you can reprogram them. Start telling yourself the truth about money and success. Say wealth is a reward for value. Success is possible for me, and I can create the life I want. At first, your mind may resist, but with repetition, those new beliefs will take root. A young man once asked me how to become successful. I told him, first, change what you believe about success. If you see success as a struggle, it will be. If you see it as something within reach, your mind will start finding ways to achieve it. And once you shift your beliefs, your actions will follow. The key is simple. Change what you believe, and you will change what is possible for you. Most people spend their time focusing on problems. They talk about what's wrong, what's missing, and why things won't work. And the more they focus on problems, the bigger those problems seem. But successful people train their minds differently. They don't dwell on what's wrong, they look for solutions. They don't ask, why is this happening to me? They ask, what can I do about it? Because here's the truth. Your mind will find whatever you train it to look for. If you focus on problems, you'll always find more problems. If you focus on solutions, you'll start finding opportunities. It's a habit, just like anything else. And it's a habit that can be trained. I once knew a man who always had an excuse. If there was an opportunity to grow, he saw the obstacles. If there was a chance to improve, he saw the risks. One day I asked him, what if, just for 1 week, you only focused on solutions? At first he struggled. His mind wanted to go back to old patterns, but after a few days, he started seeing possibilities where he used to see roadblocks. That shift in thinking changed his life. If you want to reprogram your mind for success, start by changing the questions you ask yourself. Instead of saying, why is life so hard? Ask, how can I make it better? Instead of saying, why can't I succeed? Ask, what steps can I take to move forward? Your mind is powerful. It will go to work finding answers for whatever question you give it. So give it the right ones. I remember when I first started learning about personal growth. I didn't know where to begin, and for a while, I kept telling myself, I don't know enough. But then I changed my approach. I started asking, what can I learn today that will move me forward? That small shift made all the difference. Instead of feeling stuck, I started making progress. A man once told me he wanted to start a business, but didn't have the money. I asked him, what could you do right now with what you have? He thought about it and realized he could start small. Within a year, he was making more than he ever thought possible, all because he stopped focusing on what he didn't have and started looking for what he could do. The mind is like a muscle. It strengthens with use. Train it to see solutions, and soon nothing will seem impossible. It's not enough to think differently. You have to act differently. A new mindset without action is just a wish, a hope, an idea that never becomes real. If you want to reprogram your mind for success, you have to reinforce your new way of thinking by taking action every single day. Because here's the truth. What you do proves what you believe. Most people wait until they feel ready before they take action. But that's a mistake. Action is what creates belief. If you want to believe in your ability to succeed, start taking steps, no matter how small. Each action reinforces your new mindset and tells your subconscious, this is who I am now. I remember when I first started changing my thinking, I had all these new ideas about success, but nothing changed until I took action. I started reading books, listening to mentors, setting goals, and pushing myself beyond my comfort zone. And with every step, my belief grew stronger. That's how you lock in a new mindset. Not just by thinking about it, but by proving it through action. A man once told me he wanted to be more confident. He had read the books, listened to the lessons, but still felt unsure of himself. I asked him, have you taken action on what you've learned? He admitted that he hadn't, so I told him confidence doesn't come from knowledge alone. It comes from doing. He started putting himself in situations that required confidence. He spoke up more. He took on challenges. And before long, he didn't just think he was confident, he was confident. If you want to reprogram your mind, don't just tell yourself you are disciplined. Wake up early and prove it. Don't just tell yourself you are successful. Start making decisions like a successful person. Take action and your mind will adjust to match your behavior. Too many people wait for motivation, but motivation isn't what creates action. Action creates motivation. If you take the first step, the next one will be easier. And before long, your new way of thinking will become automatic. You don't have to make massive changes overnight. Start small, but start. Because the only way to truly change your mindset is to live it out through action. Gratitude is one of the most powerful tools for reprogramming your mind. It shifts your focus from what's missing to what's already there, from problems to possibilities. And when you train your mind to see what's good, you open the door for even more good to come into your life. Because here's the truth. Whatever you appreciate, appreciates. Most people spend their time thinking about what they don't have. They dwell on their struggles, their disappointments, their frustrations. But the more you focus on what's wrong, the more negative your mind becomes. If you want to reprogram your subconscious for success, you have to start seeing what's right. And that begins with gratitude. I remember a man who came to me feeling stuck. He had goals, but felt like nothing was working. I asked him, "What are you grateful for?" He hesitated, then started listing a few things: his family, his health, the opportunities he did have. I told him, "Spend a few minutes every morning focusing on that. Before you think about what you want, appreciate what you already have." Within weeks, his attitude changed. His energy improved, and as his mindset shifted, so did his results. Gratitude isn't just about feeling good. It changes how you see the world. When you appreciate what you have, you start looking for more to appreciate. When you focus on the positive, your mind becomes wired to see opportunities instead of obstacles. And that shift can change everything. A young woman once told me she wanted more success, but felt like she was always behind. I asked her, "Do you ever stop to acknowledge how far you've come?" She realized she had been so focused on what she hadn't achieved that she never gave herself credit for her progress. She started ending each day by writing down 3 things she was grateful for. It didn't take long before her perspective and her results transformed. Gratitude isn't just something you feel, it's something you practice. Start each day by listing what you're grateful for. Make it a habit to recognize the good in every situation. The more you do it, the more your mind will be programmed for success. Because success isn't just about what you get, it's about how you see. And when you train yourself to see the good, you invite more of it into your life. Success isn't just about thinking the right thoughts or saying the right words. It's about making sure your thoughts, words, and actions all move in the same direction. Because here's the truth. You can't think one way, speak another, and act in a completely different way and expect success. Your mind, your words, and your behavior must be aligned. That's when you create real change. Most people say they want success, but their actions tell a different story. They say they want financial freedom, but they keep making poor financial decisions. They say they want to be healthy, but they don't take care of their body. They say they believe in themselves, but they let fear hold them back. And that kind of misalignment creates frustration. It keeps people stuck. If you want to reprogram your mind for success, you have to make sure that what you think, what you say, and what you do are all in harmony. I remember a man who came to me and said, "I want to be wealthy." I asked him, "What are you doing about it?" He told me he was reading books, listening to speakers, and thinking positive thoughts. I said, "That's good, but what actions are you taking?" He paused. The truth was, he was thinking about wealth, talking about wealth, but not making any moves toward it. I told him, knowledge is great, but action is what makes knowledge valuable. Align your thinking with real action. That is what makes knowledge valuable. Align your thinking with real action. He started saving, investing, and making better financial choices. And that's when things changed. Words are powerful, but they have to be backed by action. If you tell yourself, "I'm going to be disciplined," then prove it. If you say, "I'm committed to success," then act like it. Your subconscious mind doesn't just listen to your words, it watches what you do. If your actions don't match your words, your mind won't believe you. But the moment you start proving your beliefs through action, that's when your subconscious accepts the new programming.